My own son laughed in the foyer and said, "Mom's not getting a cent," and I realized the morning was already over. I had come down the stairs slowly, still in my funeral clothes, still smelling like the flowers that had been pressed into my hands all day. The house was full, but not with comfort. It was full the way a jar fills with flies when you leave the lid off. Have you ever heard greed breathing? I did, right there in my hallway. They spoke as if I was furniture that hadn't been dusted. My daughter-in-law, Vanessa, carried a tray of sparkling drinks like this was a holiday. My grandchildren drifted from room to room with bright tags and bold markers, labeling what they wanted. That lamp goes to me. I'm taking the piano bench. Put a note on the silver. And nobody looked at my face when they said it. Isn't it strange how people can stand inside your home and talk like you are already gone? I stayed near the bottom step, one hand on the railing Robert polished every spring. My knees trembled, but I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing it. Daniel, my son, my only child, leaned close to his cousin and muttered, "I thought she'd fade before Dad. Guess she missed her chance." The words hit like cold dishwater. Not dramatic, not loud, just humiliating. They shuffled my seat at the table too. My chair was replaced with a folding one that rocked like a bad tooth. Vanessa pointed toward the back hall and said, "It's quieter by the utility sink. You'll be more comfortable away from everything." Comfortable. That word can be a weapon, can't it? I ate off a paper plate beside a bucket of mop heads while they toasted "The Legacy." From the dining room came bursts of laughter and clinking glass. "This place smells old," someone complained. "When she's out, we'll open the kitchen wall and make it bright." I heard my granddaughter, Ava, say, "If she forgets where she lives, can we still collect her checks?" More laughter. I swallowed dry chicken that tasted like cardboard and kept my eyes down so they wouldn't see the heat rising in them. But in my sweater pocket, my fingers touched paper, thick, crisp, stubborn paper. A document I had guarded for years, not because I planned revenge, but because I needed proof that I wasn't only the woman who set the table. Do you know what it is to be reduced to your chores, even by the people you raised? That night, once the crowd settled into guest rooms they had already claimed, I lay on a thin blanket in the small room they assigned me. It wasn't a bedroom. It was a space meant for detergent and spare light bulbs. The ceiling bulb flickered as if it was embarrassed. My suitcase sat open on the floor like a mouth that couldn't speak. And that was when I decided, if they wanted me silent, they should have been kinder while I was quiet. I didn't sleep much. I listened instead. Footsteps above me. Drawers yanked open. My jewelry box sliding across wood. Vanessa's voice, low and pleased, "We'll donate most of her things. She won't notice." Won't notice. As if years can be erased with one careless sentence. At dawn, I washed my face in the utility sink. The mirror was spotted, but it showed me enough. I looked older than I felt, yet my eyes still belonged to the girl I used to be, the one who worked numbers faster than anyone in her office before she ever became Mrs. Bright. Who was I, really, if not the sum of everything I carried? 15 years earlier, Robert's company was sliding into trouble so quietly that nobody at dinner could hear it, but I could. He stopped humming while he shaved. He stared at invoices too long. He held his coffee like it was the only warm thing left. One evening he came home with his tie loosened and sat in the dark den without turning on a lamp. He said, "If we don't secure new money, we lose everything." He wouldn't ask Daniel for help. Pride made Robert stubborn. And the board? The board would have rather watched him drown than admit weakness. He needed collateral by Monday, real cash, not hopes. He said it like a confession and then stared at the floor as if the carpet could forgive him. I kissed his forehead and told him, "We'll handle it," even though my throat tightened when I said it. That night, while he slept, I opened the cedar chest I kept in the closet. Inside were the pieces of my past that women are taught to treat like armor: my mother's necklace, earrings from my wedding, a bracelet I wore on Daniel's first birthday. I laid them on a towel and stared until my eyes burned. What do you sell when the price is your family's survival? I sold them all. Quietly. No goodbye speeches, no dramatic sighs. Just a signature on a receipt and a wire transfer before noon. The money went straight into the account Robert's accountant monitored. 2 days later, the deal he needed went through, and the company steadied itself like a man grabbing a railing before a fall. Everyone called Robert a genius. Nobody asked where the miracle came from. And that wasn't even the whole truth. Robert had a brilliant mind for people and negotiation, but he never loved the fine print. I did. Before I married, I worked in finance, the kind of job where you learn to read contracts the way some people read faces. I gave it up because Daniel needed a mother and Robert wanted a home that ran smoothly. I told myself it was temporary. Years have a way of turning temporary into forever. When the company later prepared for a major expansion, Robert struggled with the presentation. He kept rewriting the same tired plan. I watched him pace at midnight, rubbing his temple, speaking to himself as if he could bully a solution into existence. So I waited until the house was quiet and sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad. I wrote a fresh strategy, cleaner, sharper, built for the future. I didn't sign my real name. I mailed it from a post office across town under a simple pen name, the kind a stranger could wear. A week later, Robert came home grinning and said, "Someone sent in a brilliant framework. It saved the meeting." He laughed, then paused, and added, "The handwriting looks almost familiar." I stirred soup and smiled like it was nothing, because I thought love meant staying invisible. Over time, that plan became the backbone of a licensing model that earned money quietly, year after year. The filings were messy, half-finished, and never fully transferred the rights the way they should have. I noticed. Of course I noticed. I kept copies. Not because I wanted to take from Robert, but because I understood what happens when a woman leaves her name off the work. When you disappear for others, they forget you were ever there. Back in the present, I reached beneath the thin mattress in that utility room and pulled out my worn folder. Inside were bank records, a trust certificate with my name, and my original handwritten draft. I didn't feel powerful yet. I felt tired. But tired isn't the same as defeated, is it? My phone had been disconnected. Vanessa called it a billing mistake. So I walked 2 blocks to the pharmacy where an old public phone still hung near the side wall. My hands shook as I dialed Mr. Keene, the attorney Robert trusted for decades. When he answered, I didn't waste words. I said, "I need you to see what they never asked to see." He went silent for a beat, then replied, "Come in tomorrow morning." In his office, the air smelled like paper and lemon polish. Mr. Keene listened without interrupting while I laid each document in front of him like cards in a serious game. He studied the trust certificate. Then the bank record showing the large deposit I made years ago. Then my draft pages, the ink faded but still mine. He looked up and asked, "Why didn't you ever tell anyone?" I could have said 100 things. I could have said I was ashamed. I could have said I was raised to keep the peace. Instead, I said the truest thing, because I thought my family loved me without proof. Isn't that what many women believe until the day it collapses? Mr. Keene hired a specialist to confirm authorship and timeline. When the report came back, it was so certain it felt cruel, the handwriting, the ink age, the match to my known samples, all pointing to me. The licensing structure, still tied to the original author, still owed ongoing payments. Mr. Keene sat back and said, "Margaret, you understand what this can change." I nodded, because I did. But the most important part wasn't the money. It was the respect that had been stolen in tiny daily ways. The folding chair. The paper plate. The jokes about my mind. The way my son spoke of me like an inconvenience. How did Daniel learn to speak that way? And why did I keep pretending it didn't hurt? The will meeting was scheduled for Friday. Daniel and Vanessa arrived dressed like they were attending an award ceremony. Ava kept texting. Logan practiced his signature, looping letters like he was already signing checks. I sat at the far end of the table in my plain coat, hands folded, back straight. And then Mr. Keene placed a small recorder on the table. Daniel smirked. What's that for? To entertain her, he whispered to Vanessa, loud enough for me to hear. Mr. Keene didn't react. He simply said, Robert left instructions that certain statements be played aloud. He pressed a button. My husband's voice filled the room, older, slower, but steady. Robert said, if anyone speaks about my wife with contempt after I'm gone, their inheritance will be reduced for every cruel remark. Daniel's face tightened. That's not legal, he snapped. Mr. Keene slid a page forward. It is, because it's written, witnessed, and backed by audio. Then the next recording played, and it wasn't Robert. It was Daniel. It was Vanessa. It was Ava. Voices from my own kitchen, captured by the home security system Daniel installed last year for safety. The recordings weren't dramatic. They were casual, which made them worse. Put her in the back room. She won't last long. She's only good for recipes. Each line was dated. Each voice was identified. Mr. Keene read the clause and began counting deductions. Not with anger, not with pleasure, just like a man reading numbers aloud. $100,000 per verified insulting statement, he said. Daniel's eyes widened. Vanessa's mouth fell open. Ava's phone slid from her hand and hit the table with a sharp sound. And the tally kept going. Daniel stood halfway up, palms on the table. Dad would never do this, he said, voice cracking. I finally spoke, softly, the way you speak when you refuse to beg. He did it because he heard you, I said. He heard all of you. Was I cruel for letting the truth stand, or were they cruel for creating it? When Mr. Keene finished, he looked at Daniel and said, after penalties, your portion is minimal. Daniel's face turned the color of chalk. Vanessa started whispering frantic plans, names of attorneys, threats that didn't sound convincing. Then Mr. Keene turned to the next page. And that was the page they never expected. He read, the primary beneficiary of my estate, trusts, and remaining assets is my wife, Margaret Bright. He slid a folder toward me, deeds, transfers, accounts, all in my name. My hands didn't shake this time. My heart felt oddly quiet, like a room after a storm passes. Daniel stared as if he was seeing me for the first time. But Mr. Keene wasn't done. He opened another envelope and said, there is also an intellectual property matter. Daniel scoffed through panic. What now? Mr. Keene placed the forensic report on the table. The licensing model that stabilized the company years ago was authored by Margaret. The rights were never properly assigned away. The room seemed to lose oxygen. Ava whispered, Grandma, like she'd forgotten I had a title besides Burden. Logan's eyes darted to Daniel as if waiting for instructions. Vanessa tried to laugh, a brittle sound that snapped halfway out. She didn't do that, she said. Mr. Keene didn't argue. He simply tapped the handwriting analysis and the filing history. Facts don't need loud voices. Then he read Robert's personal letter. His words were careful, ashamed, loving. He admitted he let the world praise him while I stayed behind him. He wrote that the board wouldn't have trusted a woman's plan, but he did. He wrote that he owed me more than flowers at a funeral. I pressed my lips together, because grief is complicated when love and regret share the same chair. Daniel's voice went thin. Mom. I didn't know. He reached toward me as if he could touch the years back into place. I didn't pull away, but I didn't lean in either. You didn't ask, I said. You decided. Kindness is not permission to be discarded. Mr. Keene ended the meeting with a final instruction. The estate property would be cleared of unapproved occupants within 48 hours. Legal notices were already prepared. Daniel sputtered, You can't throw us out. Mr. Keene replied, The owner can. He nodded toward me. For once, everyone in the room understood who the owner was. Driving back to the house, Daniel followed in his car like a frightened child trailing a parent through a store after getting lost. At a red light, I watched his hands gripping the wheel. My mind flashed back to those same hands, small and sticky, reaching for mine at the first day of school. How does love turn into entitlement? At home, the packing began. No laughter this time. Boxes thumped against the walls. Tape ripped like rough breathing. Vanessa stormed through rooms muttering that I was selfish. I didn't answer. I walked slowly from space to space, noticing the bright tags still stuck to furniture. Each tag looked like a little flag planted in stolen ground. I peeled them off one by one. Not angrily. Carefully. The table Robert built with his own hands. The lamp my mother gave me. The framed photo from our anniversary, the glass cracked where someone dropped it. With every tag removed, the house felt less contaminated. Isn't it strange how paper can insult you more than words? Daniel cornered me in the hallway. His eyes were red. Please, he said. We were grieving. We didn't mean it. I studied him and realized how easy it is for adults to blame pain for their choices. Grief didn't make you call me worthless, I said. It only removed your mask. When they finally left, the front door closed with a soft click, not a slam. Silence moved into the rooms like clean air. I stood in the living room and listened to nothing. No whispering plans. No mocking jokes. Just the old house settling, wood cooling, pipes ticking. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. In the backyard, the garden had been neglected all week. The flower beds looked thirsty, the soil pale and cracked. Robert used to water at sunset, humming under his breath. I found the old metal watering can and filled it. The water poured out steadily, darkening the dirt as if it was remembering how to live. Who told my family I couldn't bloom again at my age? Over the next months, attorneys handled what needed handling. Daniel sent letters that sounded rehearsed. Vanessa sent none. Ava tried to apologize once, awkward and frightened, like she was speaking to a stranger she didn't expect to matter. I accepted her apology but not her excuses. Love doesn't grow well in a house that only values money, does it? By spring, I sold the property. Not out of spite, but because some walls hold too many sharp echoes. I moved into a smaller place near the ocean where I could hear waves instead of whispers. I kept only what I truly loved, a few photographs, my books, Robert's old watch, and my folder, now filed properly, no longer hidden like shame. The payments from the licensing rights arrived regularly. I could have bought anything. Instead, I started a quiet fund to help older women who were pushed aside, women whose work was credited to someone else, women whose work was credited to someone else, women who were told they were just mothers, just wives, just caretakers. Just. That word has stolen more futures than any thief with a crowbar. Have you ever noticed how society praises sacrifice and then forgets the sacrificer? Some evenings, I sit by my window with tea and think about Daniel as a little boy again, about Robert's tired smile, about the choices I made in the name of love. I don't regret saving my family. I regret that I saved them without teaching them the cost. Because the truth is, I trained them to overlook me by always stepping back. If you're listening to me now, let me tell you something I learned too late and still believe is worth saying. You are allowed to take up space in your own story. You are allowed to keep receipts, literal and emotional. You are allowed to be soft and still be formidable. And if this story stirred something in you, please tap like and subscribe to Dust of Old Days. It helps these old truths find new ears. Because families don't only inherit money. They inherit the way they treat the people who loved them first.